Because they give you instructions to act for them, but you will never get them to get further instructions. But Mr. Speaker, and I want the country to know that I'm doing this for the Senate pro bono without being paid any fees. But Mr. Speaker, you will confirm to the House, Mr. Speaker, that I wanted us to move together. And I'd requested the Speaker to call for Kamkunji yesterday so that I report back to the House the progress that we had made in trying to have this matter settled out of court. And as Senator Orengo has said, we have actually had a partial discussion because we have not agreed on issues on Article 109 and 114 on money bill. We have made some progress on 110. But I can tell you that there is a very good I think overtures coming our way from the Speaker of the National Assembly, including a proposal that we explore amending the standing orders of the National Assembly and the Senate to allow for co-sponsorship of bills, so that we don't have a situation where bills like the one that was sponsored by Senator Kasanga, mental health bill, has very good provisions, but was knocked down on account of it being a money bill. So I want to urge the House to trust the Senator for Jamira, who is a senior counsel, who is a former chair of the Law Society of Kenya, to offer able representation. But, Mr. Speaker, you can give direction to the House as to when we will have a Kamkunji so that we report to the House on the progress we are making. And I agree with Senator Kangata, the leader of the whip from the majority side, that we need to report back to our clients, and then they give us authority to enter into any consent. That I fully agree. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kimani wa Matangi, then Senator Wetangula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also rise, Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, and especially to ride on the communication that you had made earlier, Mr. Speaker, and as raised by Senator Cheriot, that you have promised to make a communication, Mr. Speaker. As the chairperson of the Committee on Roads in Senate, Mr. Speaker, I would want in your communication that you also, Mr. Speaker, communicate to this House and also to the Committee on Roads, Mr. Speaker, because some times ago, Mr. Speaker, during the discussion and debate on the bill of the Roads Bill 2015, which came to this House, which was debated vigorously in this House, Mr. Speaker, and because the National Assembly disagreed with that bill, Mr. Speaker, and the resolutions of the Senate as amended on that bill, Mr. Speaker, yourself and this House passed a resolution to form a mediation committee. And in that mediation committee, Mr. Speaker, I sat with senators, Senator Wambua, I sat with quite a few senators. I might not remember all of them, Mr. Speaker. But then the process of the discussions on the mediation, Mr. Speaker, collapsed. Because when senators sat with members of the National Assembly, we were booed, we were heckled, we were called names. Finally, that process collapsed. And effectively, we reported to this House that the mediation has collapsed. But then, subsequently, upon perusal, Mr. Speaker, it came to my notice and attention as the chairperson of the committee that a consent has been entered that we agreed. And Mr. Speaker, the question that I would want to be addressed, Mr. Speaker, effectively and clearly in your communication, Mr. Speaker, is how, in the absence of involvement of the committee, the members who had been selected in that panel of mediation, how was a consent entered in a process of mediation that collapsed, Mr. Speaker? I would want to hear that, Mr. Speaker, so that I can also communicate to members of my committee and to this House how that consent was entered.
Senator Wetangula.
First, I want to thank the Senator for Kericho for raising this matter, and equally for the Senator for Siaya for offering an explanation. But, Mr. Speaker, with hindsight, and those of us who have been here from the last Senate, we have had a lot of frustrations, a lot of fights to find the footing and relevance of this House within the constitutional order of this country. We have gone to court in the last session, Mr. Speaker, and we made some milestone in the Supreme Court advisory. I want to urge the leadership, Mr. Speaker, because they lead the House, and the entire House is the client of Senator Omugeni and other lawyers that have gone to court, that given what we have gone through, in fact, if there was any intention to file a consent tomorrow, it should be deferred. So that, Mr. Speaker, if any such consent is entered, it must bear in mind, and we need to see the draft amendments of the standing orders of the lower house that have been an impediment to these processes, so that we satisfy ourselves that in fact that amendment is within the letter and spirit of the consent we are entering. If there is any change in our own standing orders, we need also to satisfy them in the same manner. Then and only then, Mr. Speaker, should we consent to anybody going to file a consent on our behalf. Before we went to court, Mr. Speaker, you remember we had a serious kamkunji where everybody spoke and everybody's opinion was taken on board before we walked all the way to Miliman Law Courts. I sympathize with some of our colleagues who had difficulties walking, but we still reached there, like the distinguished Senator Millicent Omanga. Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I can say without any fear of contradiction that Mama Miradi had a lot of problems walking all the way. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge Senator Orengo and Senator Bogisho to cause you to have a kamkunji. Let's look at what we went to court for and what we are achieving in the process of this consent so that going to the future, this House reclaims its position and constitutional relevance in the dispensation of the new order in this country. Because, like Senator Orengo said, if you look at the Constitution, the issue of what a money bill is very fluid. It just says a money bill is a money bill. It doesn't say anything beyond that. And it's now been left to the National Assembly to decide what is a money bill and what isn't. We need to have defined parameters on what exactly is. And the Supreme Court said they can't envisage any legislation that doesn't touch on counties. So they must all come here. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge that tomorrow's proceedings in court and the parties can consent to stay anything to a later date so that we have clarity of these issues.
Yes, point of information.
Mr. Speaker, the position is no consent has been filed, and the case is starting tomorrow. And the bench directed there will be no adjournment. The case starts tomorrow. And I would also want to confirm to the Senate that our lawyers and the legal department, they have filed their submissions, full submissions on every question. So it's not nobody has gone to rest. And I think for that, some of us who have been following this matter, you know, we deserve a pat on the back because, you know, preparing submissions is not it's not an easy thing. If I show you the authorities and the submissions which have been filed, and our legal department in the Senate has done a lot of work. So I would say now that the consent has not been filed, let people come to court tomorrow, because the judges said there is no adjournment tomorrow. You must argue that case tomorrow for 2 days. You must argue that case. And I think the Council of Governors are also having problems with certain bills. The Katiba Institute have also brought some issues. So I just wanted, Mr. Speaker, to clarify, yes, there were discussions, and that discussions did not amount to a consent being filed as yet, and it did not amount to a withdrawal. And now we've been put in a position because of the directive of the court. And you know, it's COVID time. It's a bench of, I think, 5 judges. 5 judges. And they said no adjournment tomorrow. So I think, Senator Cheriot, I would want to see you in the court tomorrow, whether it is virtual, but I think it's a physical hearing.
Senator Cherargei, then we.
Thank you, Speaker, for this opportunity. As the People's Chairman and former Chair Legal, we did put a lot to ensure it was a success. I want to thank Senior Counsel James Orengo, Senior Counsel, my predecessor, Senator Okongo Mugeni, Senator...
Your successor.
My successor, sorry. And Mutula Kilonzo Jr., it reached a time that only a few of us were in Milimani. And I want to say we have done a lot and I'm proud. And Chair, on a lighter note, even if I was the whip, let these people not de-whip my work that I done as the Chair of the Legal Affairs. A petition, and Chair, on petition number, and I hope Senator Kangata is listening to that, on petition 284/2019, it was consolidated with petition 353/2019, and I can confirm what my minority leader said, that we have 2 straight days between tomorrow and Thursday, and the judges have made a ruling that, or have made a decision that we shall proceed as from tomorrow. So I wanted to bring to the attention, and I agree in the consolidated petition of 353/2019, the COG is the 5th petitioner in the consolidated petition. So I wanted to give this information to the House Speaker and agree that we need to fast track and work together. It is my prayer that this matter be heard and be concluded, because Senate as a house needs its space. We must move forward. And I want to advise my House leadership for free that don't allow any pro bono, don't allow any other way to resolve this issue. If we do not allow the courts to pronounce itself on this matter, I'm telling you, after some time, we'll go back to the same issues. You saw the other day the National Assembly was trying to lecture us on our role. We cannot allow that to happen, Mr. Speaker, sir, and I want to encourage my colleagues tomorrow, let us together be in court, either virtually or physically, and ensure that we give moral support to our senior counsels that are the lead, and others who are learning, like some of us, should be there so that can take notes and carry files for other senior counsels. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to say, as a former chair, I'm proud that this matter should be dispensed with, and we make our space known. The way the former leadership led by Senator Murkomen, Senator Kithure Kindiki did in the petition, I think in the advisory opinion on the issue of division of revenue. So, Mr. Speaker, we must agree to move forward so that the Senate can have its space, so that we no longer become the footnote. Mr. Speaker, I thank you, and thank you for this opportunity.
Senator Wako.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want also to speak on this. Of course, I have absolute confidence in the lawyers who are representing us. That is Senior Counsel Orengo and the chair, the current chair of the Legal Affairs, Mr. Omogeni. But I'm glad that even they see that a client must be informed at every stage of the proceedings. And they have agreed to inform us because we are the clients. But, Mr. Speaker, so I want also to mention 2 things. One, money bill. Money bill, whereas before, the Speaker of the National Assembly, or the National Assembly rather, considered all bills not to touch on counties, and therefore they say that we can only consider the county allocation bill. Whereas they used that excuse, which we debunked in the Supreme Court ruling, now the excuse that they are using is that this bill concerns a money bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, over the weekend we are considering a bill that has come up on an alternative dispute resolution bill. And they said it's a money bill and therefore it cannot come. And when I inquired, it appeared that nearly all the bills that have come up in recent times are not going to come here, not because of the other reason they used to use, that they don't touch on counties, but because it is certified as a money bill. So I would urge our representatives who are, in this particular case I hear, it's also an issue. If you can also focus on trying to get as much as possible a similar agreement that you have reached on these other issues of the consent between the two speakers on the issue of the money bill, you would have preserved the position of this Senate in the legislative process. Mr. Speaker, sir, I had a very young senator called Olekina saying that we young ones, we are here to preserve the future, but let them also know that you are where you are now because we old ones were there at the very beginning. Mr. Speaker, sir, I can say without any fear of contradiction that had we, the old ones, not taken appropriate action during the first term, you will not be here as a Senate. You will not be here as a legislature. You'll be legislating only on one item, and one item only. But because of the action we took, you are where you are. We went to the Supreme Court under my watch as the chair at that time, supported by the chair of devolution, Mukomen and others. We all, and the speaker also, even the speaker, we went to the court and said, it is a matter of life and death for us. It's a matter which concerns our mandate as a legislature, and therefore we put, without considering party affiliation and so on, we are all one as senators. And in fact, I remember saying so at that time that I just hoped that the Senate will continue to have that spirit when we are here of just being senators rather than acting according to the party affiliations. So you young men know that we contributed, and we continue to contribute. As you can see, Orengo is contributing on this matter, Omogen is contributing on this matter, not just young. But please learn first, because we are soon going away, so you learn first from us when we are still around.
Finally, Senator Mutula Kinoto Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I think we first should congratulate our legal team, the one best in the Senate. We're only given 2 lawyers, and those 2 lawyers have done a tremendous job, including Senior Counsel Senator Omogeni, Senator Orengo, and to a large extent our clerk, who has aided in some of these prayers. Number 2, I'm aware, Speaker, that some people wanted us to withdraw this case. I'm also aware, because I saw a draft, that some people had rewarded the consent. The only consent that is acceptable to these very troublesome clients of Senator Omogeni is a consent on the prayers in our petition. If they allow the prayers we have sought about Article 110, Article 109 and 114, we are happy to consent that the petition be allowed as we have prayed. Mr. Speaker, can you imagine the proposal and bill drafted by Senator Sakaja and I on how you and Senator and Speaker Muturi should sit is also a money bill. That is how sad this matter is. Mr. Speaker, somebody quoted the advisory opinion number 2. Advisory opinion number 2, this is what it says in paragraph 102. With a good speaker, you will find anything about security, public administration that concerns counties. And therefore, I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, that Senator Omogeni comes back to us as his clients after he has made his submissions, not before. Thank you, Speaker.
Senator Mwaura, 2 minutes, and then Chila Yako. 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have been here before, and I think possibly our counterparts in the National Assembly can see that maybe the courts will agree with us. I remember very well when I was seated in the Rules and Procedure Committee of the National Assembly, a suggestion was made to have co-sponsorship of bills, as Senator Omogeni has said. But because of the capricious nature of the debate between these two houses, that was actually, it was turned down. And so therefore, Mr. Speaker, it's only in order if the prayers in the consent of the National Assembly are submitted in court for the court to actually rule on them. And in that regard, also, in our submission, we make it very clear in terms of the courts properly and definitely defining what is a money bill and what is a bill concerning county in their own interpretation, because that is actually their prerogative within the law. And then only after that, Mr. Speaker, using the court's judgment, can we then amend the standing orders? Because, Mr. Speaker, if we allow a gentleman's agreement, it has been reneged before. And we can go on and on and on, including agreeing to give monies for oversight for this Senate. Right now, Mr. Speaker, by dint of insisting on our role, we are augmenting the relevance and indeed the place of the Senate. And so therefore, any consent thereof, even when it is coming on the heels of the division of revenue, the current third generation formula as per Article 203, 204, I think it is important that we allow the courts to rule on this matter, and then now we can come back and argue on a gentleman's agreement. We cannot trust people who before have actually reneged on what we've agreed. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Finally, Senator Ayako, we have to make progress.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to make a few remarks on this matter. Mr. Speaker, I've not robbed for a long time. It was regarding this matter that I decided to look for my robe and go to court under the leadership of our minority leader and, of course, the lead counsel, Senator Omogeni. I think I want to congratulate them for standing firm. I want to state, Mr. Speaker, that my reading of the behavior of the National Assembly and its leadership is it's too little too late. Mr. Speaker, there is a remote appearance of goodwill on their part, but it's not backed with honesty and action. And I want to say that because if you look at their submissions, and I've looked at them, the submissions run contrary to an admission that they have been unfair to us. Number two, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the recent behavior of the National Assembly leadership by declaring some of our bills that they are money bills, it appears that if we do not have the force of a full judgment of court, the consent that we are looking for may smell rosy, but may be full of thorns. So I want to agree with my colleagues who are of the view, and I'm of that view, that if there is any consent to be entered, let it be in the words and spirits of the prayers that we made in court. Anything that is less than that may be deceptive, may be intended to lull us to sleep. We know where we came from, a situation of desperation where senators were marching on the streets. Senators are not supposed to march on the streets. We are supposed to legislate here, and we are supposed to negotiate and compromise here. So I want to conclude by thanking the team that has started this matter in the earlier Senate, and the team where I fall in that has continued in this matter. But let the consent reflect the prayers we took to court. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of Majority.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, I think just to support, I don't know how we got there, but just to support the idea, Mr. Speaker, that the leadership plus the Speaker of this august House cannot betray their members. And so, Mr. Speaker, the impression that maybe some of us in leadership have quietly gone behind the membership, that does not happen. It cannot even happen because this House is alert and cannot happen. Speaker, I want to use this opportunity to congratulate our legal team and the people who are handling this matter and know that we will be there when we are needed to make sure that the consent order is in line with what the members wanted. Speaker, I earlier on rose to ask for a short for an adjournment. And Mr. Speaker, when I asked it in the manner that I did, you can tell, Mr. Speaker, that a number of our members were provoked. And I want to assure them that I'm a seasoned legislator and I would know exactly how to go about it. But I like the advice from my junior colleague, including the Kitui Senator. They can also begin to advise us on these matters. Speaker, Speaker, having said that, I pass on to standing order number 32, Speaker. I beg to move. I beg to move.
What was the point of order? Just speak from there. Yeah.
On the issue that had been canvassed widely, I thought you were going to make a closing. You were to make a statement. I don't know even at this point, but so that we close on that issue, because, and I would like Senator Orengo to listen to me on this one. Senator Orengo,
I thought I would give her.
Being our senior counsel and Omogeni, Mr. Speaker, it is therefore, and particularly for Omogeni, the sentiment of this House is to the effect, therefore, that any consent that, Mr. Speaker, will be sought by National Assembly. Am I, in order to say, summing up this process, the House has concluded that the proceedings should progress tomorrow, like it should, the highlighting of the submissions, because I think that was supposed to be done tomorrow, and that we will not continue pursuing that consent that is being sought by National Assembly, particularly because, Mr. Speaker, I should have disclosed further that I know the terms of the consent, that Mr. Speaker, have been proposed by National Assembly, and this House has made a resolution and members have submitted that we cannot trust a situation where we are going to file this consent and then withdraw the main petition. Then ultimately, when they will not follow.
So what's your point of order?
What we have agreed on.
What's your point of order, Senator Murugana?
Am I in order to say, Mr. Speaker, that, and I thought you were going to sum up, that from the clients of Senator Omogeni, that now he has full instructions that he should not pursue that route that the National Assembly was proposing.
Okay, I think they have heard, and you remember, originally this was a point of order, and Keriot was asking me to include in my communication when I address the House next. But I think they have heard what we've said. I'll also put it in my communication. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, pass on to Standing Order 32. I beg to move that the Senate do now adjourn. The Speaker, this is to allow for members to retreat into a Kamukunji, Speaker, or a meeting, an informal meeting, to hear a report or get a report, Mr. Speaker, on the basis of the negotiations that have been going on about the third generation formula, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what happened was we left here the last week is that, Mr. Speaker, the committee of 6 and 6, the 12-member committee, at that point, Mr. Speaker, agreed and asked the leadership. They asked us, challenged us, Mr. Speaker, to go and meet with the executive and to be able, Mr. Speaker, to see if some extra monies can be given to add to what has been given so that we can now formulate afresh how to divide this money among counties. And so, Mr. Speaker, it's just for us to go and get that report back because this happened and we have a report to give. And so I do not want to belabor the point that we will then move into a session where you allow us to move into a session where we can informally discuss this matter. So, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and again ask Minority Leader to second. Thank you.
I propose the question, which is that now the House adjourns. I put the question, which is that the House now adjourns. As many of that opinion say aye. As many of a contrary view say nay. The ayes have it.